Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you some advanced unwrapping techniques. I'll show you a couple different ways to do this, and I'll just start by switching to a saved layout, which would be Perspective in UV Editor, and then this way you can see how I go about unwrapping this with the mesh in view as well as the UV editor. Now I can always press spacebar and bring it full screen in here in the viewport and tap out with spacebar to go back to my perspective view. Now one of the cool things about my 2018 is that when you have the UV editor open, it shows you, it highlights for you. Oh, let me go ahead back here. It highlights for you where the seams are, which is great. One of the things you can do when unwrapping this is we can do a cylindrical unwrap all the way through. I'm going to create a seam directly across the bottom of this. One of the first ones I can do is right here. I'll get rid of this one right away, and I'm just doing a shift select and deselect because it's just a faster way to highlight this particular region, and press F on my keyboard to realign. And I'm going to simply, on this one, I'm going to hold spacebar. Holding spacebar, I'm going to go to UV, and then I'm going to do, I could do a planar or camera based. Either or work just as well. Now in here, okay, I'm going to use my under tools move UV shell tool, and I'm just going to drag that off. The next thing I'm going to do is, and just I left it in the comments, but of the assignment, but just go ahead and download this and import into Maya, by the way. So that would be file import, and then you would locate your railing. Alright, now I have this one selected. I'm going to simply hold spacebar, go UV, and I'm going to do another camera based. Tools, move UV shell tool, and then I'm going to simply drag that one out of the way. So now I've started to unwrap this, and I have, if you notice, it now has a seam around the bottom here. And you'll see these darker white lines, those are seams around this. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll switch to this viewport, is I'm simply going to go ahead and highlight all of these faces. Now there's a couple ways I can do this. I can do a UV cylindrical, and I want the seam to actually run on the inside of this and underneath, because that seems to be the least likely spot that you will see any seams by whoever's viewing your model. And that's really one of the most important things when unwrapping, is making sure that the seam is in the most unseen part of the model. Sometimes there's just no way around it. You're gonna have to see the seam, but I have in the next lab, I'm going to show you how to go ahead and make your seams basically a seamless texture. So anyway, I'll go ahead, and I have that, and now I'm going to rotate at 90. Nope, I want to rotate at -90 on this one. And here you'll notice that I have it unwrapped. I like to turn on my blue here to show the shell itself. If it's red or purple, if you remember from previous labs, that means the normals are reversed or there's overlapping on your UVs. So I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to go back to my tools, and I can just run an unfold, and I'm going to simply unfold this, and you'll see it should just turn out just like this. And I'm just clicking with this across the entire thing, and then I'm going to go back to my Move UV Shell tool, and I'm just going to drag it out of the way. Now the next thing I'm going to do is over here and simply grab another section, hold spacebar, UV, cylindrical, and I want to make sure that I have that seam on the inside, and I'm going to do this one, I believe, at 90. Yes. And then tools, Move UV Shell tool, grab that out of the way, and then tools, unfold. And now I'm simply just going to, it'll make some weird kind of shape at first, but then once you do it enough, it'll smooth itself out, and just run that over the entire thing. Now the other thing I want you to take a notice to is that now my seam is directly here, right? It's directly on the interior line, running up and underneath. Eventually will run underneath the entire mesh itself. Now here's where it may start to get tricky for us, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run an unwrap on each one of these sections entirely individually. So this one, I'm going to go from about here to here, give or take, maybe, yeah, that'll do. And just double check that I'm not selecting any additional faces. Not a big deal if you do. I'm going to show you how to move and cut seams and things like that here in just a moment. So I have that section. Now also UV, and I'm going to run a cylindrical, and you'll notice that it's running a cylindrical this way, and I don't want it to do that. I'm not sure if this is going to be, that'll work. So I'm running my rotate X at -90, and I'll run my Y at 90, and you'll see that I have this entire thing here. Now, like I said before, let me get this out of the way, just go ahead and run a smooth. You'll see what the seam actually, it didn't work entirely how I wanted it to, because right here it splits. So I'm going to switch to my edge, and I'm actually going to select my arrow tool here, and now I'm going to go back to edge. For whatever reason it does that, and I'm going to select all of these. I should be able to just run a click right down, just a double click. I just selected one and then shift double clicked the rest of it, and that should run it across the entire thing. Now here, cut and sew tab, I'm going to cut, and you'll notice right now under my tools, my Move UV Shell tool, I'm going to go ahead and drag this off. Oop. Tools, Move UV Shell tool. There we go. And you'll see it's an entirely separate mesh. Now I can move it, move it into place over here. And I don't need it to be absolutely perfect, because that's what our Move and Sew tool is. So again, I'm going to select my arrow, and I'm going to go right click, edge, and now I'm simply going, and you'll notice how they highlight because they're actually running on the same edge. Okay, and if I run a double click on that, because it's the entire thing is separated, you'll notice that it highlights the entire thing. So in this case, I'm going to shift click this one, and hopefully I'll be able to shift double click here, and it should just run and grab that entire edge, and it did. So again, I'm going to go to cut sew, and this time we're going to do move and sew, and you'll see it just snaps right into place, and that's a really great tool. So now that I have fixed my seam, and you'll notice now I have that seam running straight across the bottom, and tools, I'm going to select it using my Move UV Shell tool, and then I'm going to run my Unfold, and I'm just going to increase my size here, holding B and left clicking, and when I unwrap this, it should start, or unfold this, I'm sorry, it should start to create it unfolding. Now, one more thing, you may not 100% understand why I'm doing this yet. You may be saying, well, I could just throw a texture on there and it'll look fine. Now, it won't because of all these weird seams, but what I would like to show you, and I'm going to assign a new material, and I'm going to just do a Lambert Blend. Here's Lambert, and now I'm going to, I right clicked on this arrow, otherwise you just keep clicking until you get to the end. I'm going to go to Lambert here, and I'm going to click color, or on the checker box on the color, and from here I'm going to do checker. Make sure you have 6 pressed, and you'll see now that I'm starting to get these correct checkerboards on here, whereas in this region it is really wonky, and that's from all of the seams on there. So, and you'll notice these checkers are much smaller where these are much larger, and that's because of the scale. We don't have to worry about it too much yet, but we'll get to that in a second, and we're going to fix that part also. Now, I have a little trick that make sure I've selected all these faces that I like to show you, and you could probably do this on the entire thing. I'm going to show you on this particular section. I find this to be one of the fastest ways to unwrap anything, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold spacebar, and in case you're getting confused with the cylindrical unwrap, I could run this as a cylindrical unwrap and then unfold it, and then we'll move and sew seams and things like that. But I want to show you another technique that I've learned over the years that I find to be sometimes the fastest and most effective way. So with those faces selected, I just selected the faces of this rounding corner, and I think this is the best spot to really show you how this works. I'm going to hold spacebar again, I'm going to do UV, and on this one I'm going to do camera based, and I'm going to go tools, move UV shell tool, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to go ahead and select this, and as I just shown you, you'll notice that there's some purple in here, and that's from it overlapping the UVs because I haven't specified a seam on it yet. Now the seam I would like to make, and you'll see it on here also, is following right up this seam here. I'm going to click this edge, and then on this one I'm going to hold shift and double click, and that should highlight my entire edge, and then I'm going to do cut sew, and I'm going to do cut. After that I'm going to go to my tools, move UV shell tool, just to highlight it and select it, and then I'm going to do tools again, and I'm going to run an unfold, and I'm going to bring the brush size down a little bit, holding B, and I'm left clicking, and now I'm simply going to unwrap that, or unfold that, excuse me, and now that section is unfolded, and you'll notice that it is no longer have those red sort of tint to the checkers. It's blue now, which is good, and you'll see that seam runs right up exactly where this point meets. Now I'm going to run the same technique over here. I find this to be a very fast way to unwrap things, and I'm going to go here and just sort of highlight and select these faces, and I'm just going to make sure that I didn't highlight any faces that I did not want, like right here, and I'm holding shift and deselecting these faces, and that's always a good thing to make sure, is that you don't select any unwanted faces when you're unwrapping. And because then you usually have to cut and move sew seams and things like that. So it's just a way to save one step. Now I'm going to hold spacebar again, UV, and I'm going to do camera based again, and then I'm going to select these same edges, and I'm going to hold shift and double click, and that should highlight that entire region up to that point. And I'm going to do cut sew, and I'm going to do cut. And then the next thing, tools, move UV shell tool, select this one, tools, again, run and unfold, and I'm simply going to unfold this. And I'm just going to keep doing it until it just stops unfolding. Okay, I don't think I'm going to get too much more out of that, and I'd say that's pretty good. And then you'll see that my seam runs right across at the bottom, but we still have these seams here, and we want this to be as seamless as possible. So what I'm going to do next is here I'm going to double click each one of these edges, hold shift double click, or the seams, whichever you prefer to call it. They're both technically the same thing in this case. And I'm just selecting these edge loops, and these are going to be tools, and we're going to run cut sew, excuse me, and we're going to do move and sew. Now you'll notice that the seams do line up, but there's some major distortion, and you can see where that distortion is happening. So what we're going to do from this point, modify, or tools, excuse me, move UV shell tool, select the shell, and then tools, unfold, and I'm going to make my brush larger, and I'm going to start to unfold this entire thing, and you'll see it's starting to all become one solid. In this case, it looks like a rectangle in my UV editor. But the most important thing you'll notice now is that in my perspective view, I have this entire railing completely seamless. If I select it, you'll see there's no seams anywhere except running directly underneath, and then obviously the two caps here on each end. Now, and the other one being over here at the bottom of this edge. Now, this is really important to know, that when you're unwrapping anything, using the checkerboard is always extremely useful. And the other thing is making sure you unfold everything, and getting rid of those seams can help a lot in the texture process. Now, with that being said, what I'm going to do from this point is I'm going to now tools, move UV shell tool, and I'm going to, excuse me, one more thing I want to show you is that these, on any mesh that you unwrap, these checkers should all be the same size, and that's so there's no visible distortion in your texture. Because if you have a larger, I'm going to select actually both of these, and then I'm going to just, whoa, that's not working. So I guess I'll do one at a time. Tools, move UV shell tool, R, and it's not rescaling for me, which is strange. And not the end of the world. But these checkers should all be the same size. I'm going to bring my brush smaller. I'm going to run an unfold on it. Tools, move UV shell tool. I'm going to select this one. Tools, unfold. I'm going to just do it really quickly because I can't recall if I did it or not yet. And now I'm going to go back here for whatever reason it's not resizing, which is really annoying. It must be some kind of, let's go to my scale tool. No. And just double checking something. I'm wondering if I have my no, that didn't do it. Well, for whatever reason I can't get this to rescale. Let me try this one. Tools, UV shell tool, and see if this will redo it. And that's not working either. Okay, not the end of the world. Let me double check these settings here. I want to keep my grid on and see if that does anything. Okay, for whatever reason I cannot scale. It seems like the tool is the scale tool is sort of working as it enlarges, but it's not actually making my UV larger. So I'm going to highlight this entire thing, all of my UVs, and I'm going to go to Optimize and just run an Optimize on them really quickly. And if you have it unfolded well enough, the Optimize probably won't do too much. And I'm going to see if there's one other tool I can use in here to simply layout. Here we go. Now the layout tool is super cool, and what that does is it lays out your UVs directly in the UV cube here. Typically strange. Anyway, typically you want to go ahead and try this one more time. And for whatever reason, it's really doing some weird things.